My name is Athelwulf. I am a herald at large in the Outlands, or in the College of Heralds. I'm actually a herald extraordinary these days, so that's my new title there. Hopefully it'll pass. We'll see how it goes. But I'm here to give a presentation on how to create a unique device for these current Middle Ages. This is aimed definitely at submitters and folks who are interested in learning how to design their own arms, but the information is very useful to consulting heralds as well. This is basically how I run a consulting table when I am going to work with a submitter on building themselves new arms for themselves. So the first thing we really want to look at is the rules of thumb for designing heraldry. We want to be able to render whatever it is you come up with as your particular banner or coat of arms or whatever it is we want to say that this is me. It needs to be big and bold. The original use of heraldry was to recognize someone from a distance, usually on the battlefield, sometimes at the joust. And so if you can't recognize what it is when it's about the size of a postage stamp, without losing significant detail, it might not be recognizable at a distance and therefore will be difficult to register or will at least run into some stylistic concerns. Another thing to keep in mind is sort of been glommed together and calling it the rule of 7. If you have too much stuff, it just becomes busy and it becomes difficult to register and recognize as well. So count how many things you have on your device, so orals, chiefs, books, and bells, and count up the number of different colors that you are using and how deep the stack of the field becomes. And if all of that comes up with more than 7, it might run into some style problems, and so we should really try and consider something else. There is a second rule of 3, which sort of gets into the idea of what used to be known as slot machine heraldry, when you have a bell, a book, and a candle, or other things along those lines. Too many things makes it difficult to recognize what is the primary charge, what is the main point of this heraldry. And so therefore we suggest that you try and have no more than 2 primary charges, or as we were talking earlier, primary charge groups, to recognize, again, simplicity, making it easier to register and easier to not potentially have a conflict. And then the final one I always suggest is avoid resume heraldry. Devices or badges that show what you do will probably conflict because we've been playing this game for over 60 years. I need to update that note. And people have been using swords and needles and thread and books and pens for a long time in both period as well as in the SCA. And so the probability that someone has already come up with that resume is high. And so therefore, rather than running into a conflict, try and find something other than I am swordman, I do sword. Find things that are also things that you enjoy, but are not necessarily just quite as much of a resume. I am a fighter, I use sword. A big reason that folks try and come and have questions about conflicts is because they tried to register something and the heralds told them no. This is unfortunately the way that heraldry has been working for the last, for the first 50 years or so. And we're working to try and find creative ways to create your heraldry, to be able to come up with something that is you, and that if you don't have a conflict to worry about, you can do you could put the submission together, and in 9 months it will be theirs. And if it's creative from the start, most of your conflicts will be avoided originally. But if you've tried something before, or if you have a really common idea and you're trying to find other ways to get around the conflict, all of the sort of suggestions that are going to be in this class are a really good way to guide you towards finding something you can register without conflict. So the first suggestion is avoiding common charges. We've been doing this for a long time, and some of these things have been done so many different ways that including any of them will perhaps get you closer to a conflict than you really want to. If you want something to sail through quickly, let's try something else. If you've seen it as a high school mascot, somebody's probably registered it already. If you've seen it in a movie, it might even be blocked because that's a very famous thing and you can't have that. For instance, the Lord of the Rings movies. A lot of the heraldry in the Lord of the Rings movies have been protected because you cannot say, hello, I am Rohan, because people will look at it and go, hey, isn't that the arms of Rohan? Because it's just something that is so ingrained in popular culture that even the SCA has heard of it. But you run into a similar thing. You can't register anything that is too similar as any national flag, because again, we don't want you to say, yes, you are France. I'm sorry, no, you are not. There are other people who are already France, and you cannot claim that. Some of the things that are really common to find will be, like I said earlier, swords and axes. Those have been done to death. You can still do them interesting ways, but just a sword or just an axe, we're probably going to run into a conflict. Same sort of thing with dragons, hammers, roses, canine critters, being wolves, foxes, or dogs. Those actually all conflict with each other, and that'll come up later as how do we sort of differentiate between the different things. Pointy birds or birds of prey. Those are also very popular. They are very common. And so there's, if we don't try and do something interesting with them, we may run into a conflict. Crosses and stars, those have their own section of the precedents for how to differentiate between different crosses. Stars are very common as well. So if you're looking to have any of those items, they are very common in period heraldry. They are very common in modern heraldry. They're very common in society heraldry. And so we, again, have to do something interesting to try and get around those conflicts. Same thing with wolves and birds. We have cats. Cats are very popular with people in the SCA. Many people try and do feline-themed heraldry, and you have to get a little creative with some of the stuff to be able to get a cat that will pass on the first try. Similarly with some of the other monsters and vicious creatures, bears are very common. And then finally, castles, very common as well. They are they're in a lot of different charges and a lot of different armory, and it's again, you got to do something interesting to be able to get your castles to pass. So let's talk about crosses in particular. It's more than just the simple Latin cross. There have been so many different kinds of historic crosses for a lot of different crusades and other things that you will find different kinds of crosses, some of which are separate from other crosses, but some of which are not. And so there, like I say, there is an entire subsection of the rules for submission concerning the different types of crosses, what they conflict with, what they don't conflict with, and it's very complex. You can find something very fun, but again, it's been working. And again, we've been doing this for about 60 years. Someone may have already thought of that creative way as well. Surprisingly enough, flowers, they're very popular. And because there have been so many different kinds of flowers, there are different types of flowers which do and do not conflict with each other. The easiest way to figure that one out is count the number of petals. 4-petaled flowers don't conflict with 5-petaled flowers, don't conflict with 3-petaled flowers. But roses are their own kind of special thing. Again, very popular, both in period as well as in the modern ages. And so therefore, they're not impossible, but they definitely are not simple. You cannot just come up and have a rose, because those are very, very common. Again, as I was saying, lions and tigers, these sort of monstrous creatures, which those monsters are different, these bestial creatures are very popular. And like we were talking earlier about conflicts of different types of things, cats are cats are cats. So therefore, a golden lion, a golden tiger, and a tabby house cat all count as the same if we're trying to do a conflict, because they are all generally cat-shaped creatures. Again, same thing with dogs and wolves, and a little bit with foxes. Those are also all canine-shaped creatures and therefore conflict with each other. You cannot really get a conflict. You get conflict between different genders of animals. So a stag and a doe are both deer for the purposes of conflict. So if you have found something that you want to be able to render that and just, I'll just take the antlers off, that won't necessarily work because they're both deer. Same with bulls and cows. They're both bovines. And then also, again, eagles and ravens here, these are both pointy birds. I should have specified that. There are at least 3 different kinds of birds that I can remember off the top of my head. You've got duck-shaped birds, pointy birds, and then tall, leggy birds. There's probably more. Birds are also wide and varied. But one thing to keep in mind is that beasts and monsters do not conflict with each other. Unicorns and pegasi are monsters, and horses are beasts. And so even though they are more or less shaped the same, they are different heraldically because they're drawn slightly differently. Unicorns and pegasi are recognizable differences between each other, different than the way with deer and antlers and no antlers. So they are free of conflict from each other, and so therefore have an opportunity. If you find something that looks really cool with a unicorn, try taking the horn off and switching it for some wings, or taking the horns and the wings off and seeing if someone hasn't done that same thing with a horse. The same thing with the heraldic tiger, which is spelled with a Y, and a house cat. They are technically different creatures, and so therefore are free of conflict from one another. We just have to make sure they're not, your current design doesn't conflict with someone else who already has that heraldic monster. So I've mentioned what kind of monsters we have. Here are a few examples of some of the monsters. Going across the top here, we start with the chimera. Then we go to a manticore, or a man-tiger. We have the sort of fanciful creature, the Yale. This is what Yale University is named for. It's related in some way. I believe it's actually named for Mr. Yale, who is named for the Yale, but anyhow. And then we have the heraldic sphinx, which does not look like the Egyptian sphinx. Oh, sorry, that's a tiger at the end there. The Yale and then the tiger at the top. Then we start at the bottom with the sphinx. This one is specifically a gynosphinx, or a female sphinx. There is androsphinxes, I also believe, as well. And then we have the heraldic panther, which this came up in Andreas's class, talking about the continental panther specifically because it is breathing flame. And then you have the kraken and the heraldic dolphin there on the corner, which is technically a monster. There are also natural dolphins, which are the bestial creature, which different because, obviously look at them. That doesn't look like a dolphin as you normally think of such. So heraldic monsters are an option for a way that you can display some of your beasties in a way that is different than other folks in current heraldry. The other option is to get weird with it. This does require a certain level of wanting to commit to the bit, but you can definitely go some interesting places. Primary example, 3 lions. That is very much England. You cannot have that. But you can have 1 lion head with 3 bodies. That is a tricorporate lion, and while it may be registered as by itself, it is a unique way of rendering it, and it is completely heraldic and a way of finding other ways of displaying your creatures. You could also try and use some of the different field treatments and tinctures to mess around with your choices. You can also create new kinds of furs. We didn't really cover it at the beginning, but you've got your normal kinds of furs are usually combinations of black, white, and gold, but you can sort of change it up a bit. You can throw in a gold field with purple ermine spots. You can use that ermine fur with as just a light colored background and use it with other field treatments and divisions to sort of get that Ghoul's Girony sort of wavy division I've got there at the top. You could also throw in extra colors into things, like that vare at the bottom, which has multiple different kinds of vare, multiple different colors of vare, which is supposed to be squirrels. Traditionally, it's blue and white alone, but you can throw in other colors on top of that, or completely change up all the colors. Or you can just use a very interesting field treatment as your color, as you have the example there of that Checky, Sable, and Or lion. Interesting different kinds of line divisions are also ways of getting weird and getting around conflict. as you do get a difference between a straight line of division and a wavy or wobbly one. So try out engrailed, which is the sort of pointed one, or indented, which is more zigzag, or wavy, which is the sort of example that I've got there at the top. It is definitely something that requires a bit of a committing to the bit, because it is very bold, and you will also have to draw this repeatedly if you do decide that it is going to be your style. But if it is your style to be out there, get weird with it. Another way you can get weird with it is to throw on some wings. This is not the most common way of clearing a conflict, because it is, again, it gets kind of weird, but it is a difference, because it is adding things in a way that is not the normal way that people try and clear conflict. A lot of people try and clear a conflict by adding more stuff. This time you could sort of change the thing you've got, and it gives you more of an opportunity to be a little bit different if you are still trying to get that one last little difference to make a device your own, and take it from something that is conflicting with someone to something that has enough minor changes to be identified as different. And then the next to last thing that we come up to here is make it simpler. Like I say, a lot of folks try to escape conflict by adding things like borders and chiefs and other charges. Try running out of conflict by removing things. The concept of a field primary or field only heraldry gets automatic differences from things with stuff. So you are able to try and adjust the way your heraldry looks by having less things to conflict with. And also, it gives you the opportunity to try some creative line divisions or strewn charges to make an interesting pattern without necessarily having things on your pattern. For instance, you've got the quarterly embattled. So because you've got the interesting field division as well as the sort of simple black and white quarterly design, that is different because if there's nothing else on top of it, it is slightly tweaked. You also have that chief there, which has been divided per pale density. I believe I've got that there. That is a unique sort of division as well to give a better, just more creative ways of getting into your style. And then on the, I forget what the field division is for the one that looks kind of lacy. I believe that's just semi of flowers. And then finally, I've got the lozengey with ermine. So even though that is a division with furs in it, it is still more interesting than just a plain lozengey division. A lot of this was stuff that I collected from Master Pendar. He was able to present on this information many, many years ago, and he inspired me to come, be creative with my heraldry. And these, his presentation has been saved on the Rampart website under the Creative Heraldry page. All the images that I used of the monsters came from the Pictorial Dictionary by Master Bruce on the Mistholm, and the field treatments that I used were examples that were given by Cormac on his primer, and there were some other things that I managed to collect from Modar on his page. So heraldry is a team sport. If you have an idea, definitely ask around. We have posted in the chat, and we'll have in the links as well, links to our Discord pages and our Facebook pages where we can share and have ideas about consultation and other ways of making your devices unique to your own self. And if you have any questions, please don't feel free to reach out to me in a personal capacity. I currently am a Scorpion Herald here at Alberon, but I'm also a Herald and willing to assist wherever necessary. So if you have any questions, please definitely reach out. And that is my sort of quick and dirty class. I think I ran short, but yeah, that is my notes on how to do sort of a creative heraldry and how to make yourself your own creative set of arms for yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Athelwulf.